Hello, this is Ronnie Nichols. I'm going to make this video. I've had a few people ask me about some of the tools that I've made for making these rings, and I've got a bunch of tools, homemade tools that I've made, and little jigs. I know a lot of you wondered how I take this thing and get it to the top, and it moves the position of this handle. And since I keep the handle in the middle and use this little piece of pipe, it's nice to have that thing where to do that. And what I did, maybe you can see this. I'll try to get it to show up. See those teeth that are missing there? You just grind one of the teeth out at the very top, and when you get to there, it'll slip over a notch. And that way, I've seen a lot of these people putting spacers underneath there and so forth, and if I got one of these things that I want to put in there and be at a certain level, if that doesn't work out to be where I want it, then I can just raise it up. There's two notches, and that puts that thing right about where I can put this pipe in there. And this pipe makes this thing a whole lot easier to work. Here's a little holder that I made out of I believe it's maple, and it's got a piece of leather in it so that I can put one of these rings I'm working on in it and hold it in this thing without burning my fingers. Now when I'm working on another part of the ring, I got this little tool here that I made. I think it's maple. I use maple or dogwood, either one on these things. Dogwood's real good wood to make stuff out of. But this little holder, you can clamp this wing nut down and work on the thing. This is a tool that I made, and it chucks the ring up on the inside so you can work on the outside. I'll show you this little Carbide Burr that I used to work on the inside of the ring. I didn't make this, but it sure works nice. You can work on the inside of the ring. And I've also got some holders that I've made right here. Different styles of different grits of sandpaper. I've got anywhere from 40 grit to 600, 1500 grit paper on these. And they're just a piece of Delrin. Could be a piece of anything. It's a 1/2 inch diameter, and a lot of this paper is what I call stick-it paper, PSA paper that sticks to it. But you can use, if you use paper that's not sticky paper, you just put a piece of masking tape on it to start out with. Then I tape the end over on it, and just be sure you got it in the right direction so when your drill runs it doesn't go against the grain. I got a couple or three drills that I use. They're 20 volt battery operated Porter cable drills, and they're 2-speed, and they work pretty well. I've got a little electric screwdriver here that I made a mandrel for, and I can put what I usually do with it is I slide a ring up on there and use it to put the Teflon tape on there. It's a slow process to do by hand, and you can get a piece of that roll of that tape and put it on there and wind it on there pretty quickly. I bought these little dies. Came in a set of 5 of them, I believe, and they're different sizes. I think they're 5 degree. I bought them from some guy out in North Carolina. I don't remember his name, but they've worked real well for me. They came with these little pushers, and I chucked these pushers up in my lathe, and I turned one end of them down just a little bit, so I can push this thing with the first end and get to a certain point, and then turn it over and go a little bit further. But you see, it goes down about that far on the one side and about that far on the other. So it just gives you a little bit of extra use out of those things. And these went down. I numbered them. I don't know. Those numbers don't mean anything except for me to keep up with which one I'm using. But these are some little brass things that I made, and I call this one a 1, and this one's a 1 too. But this is the alt, and this is a double alt. Now I can work with down to a dime, and they're 5 degree bevel on them. This is my lube that I use. It's just old-fashioned Crisco. Works real well for me. Here are some homemade dies that I made. Some of them are 17 degree, and some of them are 25 degree. Some of them are 5 degree. I've got several of them I've made through the years, and some of them I use quite a bit, and some of them I don't use too much nowadays. But I got some out of Delrin for quarters and halves, and some out of brass. Now these pushers I've got down through here from a size 3 up to about a size 15. Most of them are between half size with them, except up about 12. I don't have a half size on all them. This is a little experimental ring I made out of a penny, and that's about a 6 3/4. Now you can put that in this die, in this little pusher, I mean, and put it in one of these dies, and you wrap the Teflon tape around it and put it over here on in the press. Just imagine that I've already got the Teflon tape, but that little turn down portion, this right here, let's see if I can get that where you can see it. That holds that ring tightly, holds it square. Now these are just some spacers that I use sometimes under there. This came with this ring stretcher. It was awfully rough in these things here. I've worked with it and smoothed it down quite a bit. Here's some little pushers that I made, and this wasn't my idea. I saw somebody on the internet using these, but I've got 4 different sizes of these that I can use to push these rings with. And by thinning them down like I do, they're not as hard to push. And that Delrin seems to hold up pretty well. Of course, I got a buffer here. I bought a new one here a while back. It runs 3,450 RPMs, and it was just too fast. This old motor, probably older than I am, it runs 1725, and it really does a good job. Now here's my lathe, and I use it on a lot of stuff. You probably, if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen some of this stuff. I've got some of these little jigs that I made to put a coin in when I get the hole drilled in the middle of it, and I use that to file the reading off of the edge of these coins. I don't like that rough stuff. Here's a step bit from Harbor Freight that I used to drill the holes in there. Here's a little jig that I made, a little mandrel it's made out of Delrin, and I've got masking tape around it. And I can slide a ring up on there and do a little filing on it, so forth. Here's a thing that I made to thin down the coin and make the backside smooth. Here's my little box that I put on the lathe here to catch my silver shavings, so when I'm drilling holes in these things. Here's my disc sander. I've got a one with 80 grit on it and one with 180 grit on it, and this little 1x42 belt sander. I've got several different grits of paper for it. Here's my homemade belt sander that I made from Matthias Wandel. He's a Canadian. I watched some of his videos, and I bought some plans from him. Build this little wooden belt sander. These are some little pieces of dogwood. Sometimes you get that coin hung in one of those dies, and it just needs something to tap on it. And this dogwood's hard, and it won't damage the silver coin. Some of this white paste. I didn't show these Dremel type tools I've got. I've got 5 of them, different. Some of them I use buffing compound. Some of them I use polishing stuff like silver polish and so forth. And I've got this thing on a rolling cart. It looks crazy. I've got it clamped to my lathe, but that's what holds the thing down. And I can roll this thing out of my shop and get it out of the way when I'm not using it. This little jig that I made to put my rings in and take pictures of them. It's really hard to get a picture of these rings. They're so shiny, and the light reflects on them. And I've built this little white thing and put them in. And I can arrange my lighting and get the detail to show up on them a little better.